Let's jump into rentals. So everybody wants to know, what is it affordable to move to El Salvador today, and what to rentals start at?
For example, I have a video on my channel of a couple that came from Cuenca. They were in
Mhm.
Cuenca for 10 years, which is
Okay.
a big,
Yes.
big expat hotspot. But they saw things spiraling downward. And then they came up here to El Salvador, and they have a beautiful, it's like 3, 4 bedroom with a nice modern kitchen that they pay 600 a month.
All right. So today we are heading down to the beautiful country of El Salvador with my new friend Jenny Ari. Jenny, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing awesome.
Well, thanks for doing the podcast, man. I'm really excited to dive into this podcast today for various reasons. But first, let's plug you a little bit. So, Jenny, you've been living down there for a few years. Let's give a little
Mhm.
backstory about who you are, where you're from, and how you chose to live in El Salvador. And then we'll also talk about, you have a YouTube channel that's all about El Salvador. It's living like a local in El Salvador. We're going to put that in the description so people that are interested in moving there can find you. But let's start off with your backstory. How did where are you from and how did you land there?
Well, I'm from the South, Georgia, Florida. That's where I grew up. But I've traveled the world before, various places, and so I wasn't completely ignorant to what it was to be outside of the U.S. And in 2021, I was actually world schooling with my children. And world schooling means like homeschooling, but
Yeah.
you take it on the road.
Wow.
And so with the pandemic and everything being shut in, it was yeah, it was really it was really just kind of killing um, everything, and it was just such a stressful time. So we ended up. I took my girls and we said, well, we can't fly anywhere, so let's drive.
Mhm.
And I had a pimped out passenger van, and so we drove. And we drove down, and the goal was to just to explore Central America for the year of 2021 and
Mhm.
to study the things that we did as we went along. We ended up spending about a month in every country, just
Mhm.
exploring the country, um, whatever that country's niche was, and studying that in our world schooling. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so that's and like almost all gringos, all you hear about is Costa. So I thought,
Yeah.
oh, Costa Rica is going to be so great. Costa Rica is going to be so great, and then I got down to Costa Rica, and it was Costa Rica.
Mhm.
And it did not match the hype
Right.
at all. In fact, yeah, I had a very bad experience in Costa Rica. So at the end of that, it was time to decide, okay, where are we going to go next? We're going to go back to the States. But, um, but it was very, very obvious. I'm a believer, and God said, no, El Salvador is your place. That's
Mm.
where you will have the best future. And so I went back to El Salvador because we'd gone all the way down. It's like, nope,
Mhm.
El Salvador was the right one. And this was before the régimen de excepciones, before all the gangsters were put away and things like that.
Mhm.
But I just always believe that you're only in danger when you're not where God wants you to be.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I went back there. And that's how
Wow.
I ended up in El Salvador.
That is awesome, and that's so cool that you did that with your kids. Are you a teacher? Like,
No, I'm a
okay,
life coach.
your life coach.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And my specialty is kind of massive, big life changes like death, divorce, moving to a new country,
Mhm.
like the kind of big life changes that make you kind of question, what in the world am I doing? Am I
Yeah, yeah,
crazy?
yeah.
Yeah.
But what an
So,
experience. I mean, that would be such an incredible experience for any kid to explore, out of country experiences like that and jump from country to country. That's that what a special treat that you gave your kids. That's awesome. The one thing that I wanted to mention is it's in a lot of people that begin to travel. I learned this a long time ago, and it's very true. When you say Costa Rica, well, that's the one country I've not been to in Central America. And
Mm.
the reason why is it's always been so popular for US citizens to go there. And I've always known that once you select the place where the US citizens are going and visiting, you're going to pay a lot more money.
Oh
So
yeah.
then, so when you explore places like Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, then you're like in the places that a lot of people don't go to, and they're more interesting because they're not as touched by the tourism, and yet you save money. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So El Salvador has the new president, Nayib Bukele. There's a big buzz
Yeah.
around him. I mean, he's been all over the place. He's known as the Bitcoin president. There's now a Bitcoin beach because El Salvador, I think, is the only country in Central America or even Latin America, I think, that accepts Bitcoin. He's changed a
Mhm.
lot down there. What is the hype about this president? Is it real? And what's happening in El Salvador?
Well, he's been in for over 5 years.
Yes.
So hype, only usually lasts a year or two.
Okay.
But when your actions don't meet up with your words, then that it's gone. So the fact that he's been in for over 5 years, he has an over 90% approval rating of his citizens, is because he's the real deal. I mean, he wasn't a politician, he was just had a marketing company, and I mean, he came from the outside. He's a populist president, so a lot of people kind of compare him to Trump in
Hmm.
that he's an outsider, and he just actually kept his word. He made campaign promises and then he kept them.
Hmm.
And so it's the easy formula to become popular is be good for your word. So that's kind of what happened. First, he did it just for his town because he wanted a road fix that they kept on promising to fix and they never fixed. So then he ran for his town, he got the road fixed, and then he ran for the capital, and then after the capital, he was going to run for president, and that's when he hit the big face of corruption that has been in Central America for decades and
Hmm.
centuries. And but he is definitely a firm. He's he's a believer. He believes in God, and he tells it like it is, and then he does it.
Hmm.
One thing I really like about him is if you look at some of his interviews, I'm a big person of you can't get anything from anybody else. You have to go to source. You have to
Hmm.
go to the source of the matter. If it's he said, she said, if you're going to try and trust the media, no, you
Hmm.
have to go. So when I first moved there, I went and I looked up all of his speech. I wanted to get it right from the horse's mouth. I looked up all of his. I listened to what he said, and then I looked around and I saw the actual changes that were happening. And yeah, and and that's why no, he's the real deal. He said he does what he says.
Hmm.
Well, I guess as we Americans like to say what you mean and mean what you say,
Yeah.
which is not typically a Latino thing. They're a little bit more indirect,
Yeah.
but that's not Bukele. Bukele says what he means and he means what he says.
Yeah. He's been making the rounds here recently and in the media. And he's really getting acknowledged for a lot of the change that's occurred in El Salvador. What are the big changes that's occurred since he's been there?
Well, in his first term, he took El Salvador was the murder capital of like the Western Hemisphere. It was the murder capital of all the Americas. Um, and it was just kidnappings, organized crime, and gangs just ruled the whole country. And he went in there and he said, okay, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like, this is going to stop now. And he miraculously he did it. If you want to know more about how he did it, Tucker Carlson did a great interview with him where Bukele explains exactly his process of how he changed from now it's the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. It's even safer than the US.
That's what
And
I just read that. That's unbelievable that it was just a few years ago before he was president, the most dangerous place. And now it's the
yeah,
safest place in the West. That's I think the media buzz right now, and that this guy is like a rock star.
yeah, he is. He is. But the wonderful thing is he's really humble.
Mm,
He's, I mean, he's he really embodies calm but powerful. When he speaks, he's he's very straight to the point. And as I said, he means what he says and he says what he means, but he stays kind of calm. But he's very, I guess the best way to say is he's very common sense. He's like trying to bring back common sense
hmm
into politics, which usually when you get into laws and things like that, there isn't a whole lot of common sense.
Sure. Today, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Traveling Mailbox. Are you ready to move abroad? Keep a real U.S. address without the hassle? With Traveling Mailbox, you can set up a virtual address that works just like a physical one. No more relying on friends or family to send your mail weeks later. Get your mail scanned instantly, manage it online, and forward it anywhere in the world. Enjoy total freedom and stay connected to the U.S. with Traveling Mailbox where you are. To sign up, click the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code above on the screen. Man, he sounds like he's doing a fantastic job, and he definitely has the support down there, and it's an incredibly beautiful part of the world to live in, which makes
Oh,
it even that much more attractive to move to El Salvador now, which many people are. They're going,
mhm,
man. So, all right, well, let's jump into, thanks for that. Let's jump into visa requirements. So the viewers want to know,
mhm,
how to qualify. Are there any minimum income requirements for like a retirement visa? What can you
mhm.
share about the visas down there?
Well, I started hosting tours for retirees and for people that are interested in moving into El Salvador. And what typically people do is they'll come down for a visit and then they'll come down for a stay. And a tourist visa actually lasts 6 months. They
Hmm.
extended it. It used to only be 3 months, but now it's 6 months in El Salvador. And then if you're looking for residency, um, for someone who's retired, it's 3 times the amount of like the minimum wage, and the minimum wage is around 350 to $400. So if you're making, 1,100 to $1,200, if you can show that you have Social Security income of that, or that you have a pension of that every month, then you can apply for to be a temporary resident.
I see.
But yeah. But
Okay.
the thing is, you really need to get a good lawyer. If I could, say anything from my wisdom of helping, oh, I've helped tons of people over the last 3 years, come to El Salvador. You have to get um, an honest lawyer, because lawyers down here aren't like lawyers in the US. There's no bar exam. It's just like a bachelor's degree. So
Mhm.
anybody that graduates with their it's like a 5 year degree, they say, "Oh, well, I'm a lawyer. I'll do your paperwork." But down here, it is really you get what you pay for.
Mhm.
You get what you pay for. Yeah. Some guy will say, "I'll do your paper for you," and he'll translate and maybe do the paper. But if you go back and bureaucracy is real down here. If they don't like
Mhm.
your paper at immigration, they'll say, no, we don't like this or that, or the date. It's this paper, this is too old. This police
Mhm.
check is too old. Something like that.
Mhm.
Then you'd go back to the lawyer and say, hey, well, this was wrong. It needs to be fixed. Well, he'll probably charge you again to
Mhm.
do it, because there's not like customer service. Nah, it's
Mhm.
not like that down here. It's
Okay.
there's refunds. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
refunds are,
Does that 1,200 to three times the minimum wage apply towards people who are like digital nomads that want to go live in El Salvador too?
well, no, because there's difference. There's technically 16 different ways to get your residency. And
Okay.
so so the thing is, that's another reason why you need to get a good immigration lawyer. And that's kind of why I started living like a local, because I tried to apply for my residency. And being a gringa, I'm all DIY, we're all about, we're going to do it ourselves. I'm going to look up on YouTube and I'm
Yeah.
going to, redo my bathroom this weekend from YouTube videos. And I tried to do it myself, but and I'm like, oh, well, here's the list of the requirements. I'll just go get these requirements. But I didn't know things like time limits on certain of those police checks have to be within 2 months of when you apply. And so when I
Hmm.
went down there and I tried to apply the first time, no, they said, no, this has a time limit. This is expired. And I'm like, but I gave you all the papers. And they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, but there's all these other little rules that aren't written that I didn't know. And so I had to buy a whole nother ticket to go all the way back to the US
Yeah.
to
Okay.
get new documents. And that's when I was just like, somebody needs to warn people. And
Yeah.
that's why I started like local with my husband.
No, it sounds like, yeah, a good way to approach it. So you highly recommend finding a lawyer. What would a lawyer cost to help you navigate that system? So for somebody that wants to obtain residency down there, what would they pay a lawyer to do that?
Well, like I said before, it really depends on what you're looking at and what you want. Like, for example, we provide like a full package. So it's like one price package. Our package for retirado or pensionista is about $1,400, but it's everything. Like we accompany you to, we make sure all your documents are the right documents, they have the right stamp. We hold your hand and say, okay, have you gotten this, this, this? Well, that's the translation because all of your documents have to be translated. And then it's the notary, certain things have to be notarized. And notaries down there aren't like notaries in the US. To be a notary in El Salvador, you have to be a lawyer already and then go on to have additional schooling. So notaries they're not free like up
Hmm.
here at
Hmm.
all. And so like our package, we did it that way because people were like, oh, well, I just want you to do the notary part. Yeah, but then they'd go in and some other paperwork wasn't right and they'd
Hmm.
be mad at us and say,
Yeah.
we'll do it again. It's like, I'm sorry, but that part you did.
Yeah.
You can't blame us for a part you didn't. So that's why we did a whole package thing. But you can get a lawyer and the application process itself is close to $400+.
Okay.
So all we just kind of wrapped it all up into one thing. But
Hmm.
you can there's other people like Escape El Salvador that charge closer to like 3,000
Okay.
to
And
do
you
the immigration package.
and your
And
your your package includes lawyers. You already have
yeah,
lawyers working, yeah,
yeah,
with you. Okay. So that's really
yeah,
reasonable for 1,400. And people
yeah.
can find that through living like a local in El Salvador. Is that
It's
right?
it's living like a local. There's no G. It's just
Okay.
living with it, IN.com. It's just
Okay.
living like a local.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll put
That
that
has all
definitely.
of that.
Yeah, we'll put
Because
that
the
in the.
thing is too with the retirement, you can't just it just pays to know somebody that knows. For example, we had some people that just moved in and they thought they were going to go with retirement, but they really wanted to bring their car. So it
Hmm.
ended up, it was better for them to apply for because of all the stuff they wanted to bring.
Hmm.
It was better for them to apply under more of a digital nomad kind of residency because then they could bring their car in as long if it was under $25,000 was the worth of the car, they could bring their car in and not paying any import taxes.
Interesting.
So that's why again, like yes, there's a pensionado, and then
Hmm.
there's also like an independent worker residency. So again, that's why it will pay off in the long run
Hmm.
um, to really have somebody review your particular situation. And Salvadoreños that are coming back, they can bring like two cars and,
Hmm.
they can bring up to, I think, as the government said, something like $10,000-$20,000 worth of their house goods will have no import taxes.
Right.
And so yeah, everybody's situation is different, but ballpark figure, I've at least Our immigration package, the most expensive one is probably 1,800 for one person. And that's for
Yeah.
somebody who's like starting a business.
All right. For the retirees watching, the Pensionado visa is the retirement visa, correct?
Yeah, well, it's not a visa. That's residency. That's
It's
to
a
be a temporary
residency.
resident.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for
Visas
that
only
is
apply when you're coming from a lower level country, where the passport's not as valuable.
okay.
So all they have, you have a tourist permiso for 6 months that says you can be in the country for 6 months. But if you want to get residency, then that's where these little packages come. You can have residency as a retired person. You can have residency as an independent worker. You can have residency as a missionary. You can have
What what is
residency.
what is the age requirement for the retirees?
I don't know of one. I have to ask.
Okay.
To ask my our lawyers, but I don't know that there is one.
Okay. Well, let's jump into, thanks for that. Let's jump into rentals. So everybody wants to know, what is it affordable to move to El Salvador today, and what to rentals start at?
Well, it all depends on where you live. The
Okay.
city, just like any country, the city and the beach are the most expensive. And you could find things as, high-rise apartment buildings just as expensive as the US.
Hmm.
But as I said, it depends. It all depends on where you live. If you live outside of the city, everything is much, much more affordable.
Hmm.
For example, I just helped had a client come down, and he asked me to host him for a week, and he was coming from California. He's like, look, I gotta find a place to live. I gotta apply for my residency all in these 7 days. He's like, can you do it for me, Jen? And I'm like, okay, here we go. And so we went, and at first he didn't want a car. So I was gonna put him in the city. And in the city, we found a really nice one-bedroom apartment in the nice part of the city where he didn't need a car. There's plenty of buses. There's a hospital across the street, a grocery store. And but that was much higher end. It was like 700 to $800 for that apartment because it was in the high end city part called
And,
Escalon is the
and
area.
that's in San Salvador?
And that's in San Salvador. Yeah. San
Okay.
Benito and Escalon are in San Salvador. They're kind of the highest end, most expensive
Okay.
part of the city. In the end, though, he didn't. This is another big thing when it comes to renting. Make sure, um, make sure you have a lawyer review your contract because half clients are new people. The other half are expats that have gotten scammed or burned, and they come to us and say, "Help me get out of this contract." And he actually didn't decide on keeping that place because when they gave us the contract, he could barely breathe. They're like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't wash your clothes, you can't hang them up here, you can't do this. Oh, and if anything breaks, it's all on you. The AC breaks, that's on you. If
Hmm.
anything breaks, it's on you. The toilets stuff, it's all on you. So, and then above that, they said, oh, well, we want a cosigner. I was like, this is a 60-year-old retired Marine. And
Hmm.
you want that's already shown you his bank statements of how much he gets a month. And they still wanted a cosigner. But unfortunately, because of El Salvador's past of abuse, honestly, abuse from crimes and from gangs and abuse from the government, the people are very risk adverse. And they are so risk adverse that they usually want a lot of security that you're not going to go. Now, the good thing though is typically if you're a gringo, they're a lot more trusting because they know that you're used to paying your bills and
Hmm.
keeping your contracts all the way, whereas not so typical among Salvadorans. Um, and so in the end, even though it was a great apartment, because the contract was so restrictive, he decided against it. And we went outside, we went out just outside the city where we had a new build. It was a new build townhouse that he signed up for, I think it was 600 or 650 a
Okay.
month. And And it was brand new, which he liked because, oh, I won't have any allergy problems. I won't. Is a brand new construction. And it was a 3 bedroom, which was more than he needed or wanted. But it had the other things. It had a community, and he had to get a car, of course,
Hmm.
because it was out of town.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
but it all depends. But there's some beautiful like stock communities. I don't know if you've ever seen in like England does that a lot, where they do a lot of stock houses, where it's
Hmm.
like little townhouses
Hmm.
kind of slammed together. There's ones like that are like 400, 300, but you've got to go outside the city for those ones.
Those that are 400 and 300, do you need a vehicle as well, or do you have access to public transportation?
There is public transportation. There is public transportation, but the you just have to time things very well. And as
Okay.
a retiree, you can. There's,
Sure.
typical traffic times of don't go in the morning and don't go after 5.
Hmm.
But as a retiree, if you want to go during the day, there is. It's not Europe, that's for sure. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not as easy as Europe, but it's not as difficult as the US either.
Hmm. Okay.
And the
Yeah.
public transportation is like 50 cents, a
Okay.
dollar. Most retirees avoid the city. They like to live just outside the city because the traffic is really bad.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting busy. It's getting busy in San Salvador. So would you say that the low end then is about 300 to 400 per month? That's what the low end is, just
Yes.
outside of San
3 to
Salvador.
400.
Okay.
Yep. And you're gonna need like a couple months to find one of those. You're gonna need to
Okay.
come on your 6 month visa, or come and kind of stay pendiente. They say like kind of
Sure.
be waiting and watching to see one of those come up. You're
Okay.
not gonna be like, oh, where's my 10 listings of $400? Because hello, Salvadorans are trying to pay their own rent too. And if
Yeah.
$400 is the minimum wage,
So how
you know,
about like places outside of San Salvador? Like what can you find rentals for? Even like San Miguel is a popular area.
Mhm.
Do you know anything about the rentals outside?
Yeah. So, well, typically in our tour, we usually start off with 2 days in the city, then we go 2 days up to the mountains, up to Santa Ana is what it's called,
Hmm.
and the Ruta de las Flores. It's very similar to La Fortuna in Costa Rica. It's called
Okay.
cloud forest. It's higher elevation, very lush, very green. It's a lot cooler. You might actually need a windbreak, well, not a windbreaker, but you'll need like a hoodie,
Yeah.
maybe part of the year.
Okay.
Whereas the rest of El Salvador, you never need a hoodie. So we take 2 days up north or the north, and then we do take 2 days down at the beach. And um, well, for example, up in Santa Ana, you can find much more affordable places. For example, I have a video on my channel of a couple that came from Cuenca. They were in
Mhm.
Cuenca for 10 years, which is
Okay.
a big,
Yes.
big expat hotspot. But they saw things spiraling downward. And then they came up here to El Salvador, and they have a beautiful, it's like 3, 4 bedroom with a nice modern kitchen that they pay 600 a month. And I think
Mhm.
square footage, it's probably close to 18, 1,800
Okay.
square feet.
You got a lot of space.
But
And
it's
that's
beautiful.
Santa Ana.
That's up in the Santa Ana, the Ruta de las Flores area. That's where
Yeah.
it's a higher elevation.
Is
Up
there
by the Gulf.
is that like a village where you can that has like restaurants, cafes where
Oh
people
yeah.
can walk? Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Okay.
like the third largest city in
Hmm.
El Salvador. So yeah,
Okay.
Santa Ana has a good, yeah, that's got it's got all the amenities.
Yeah. Do they have any cheaper apartments? Just like a one bedroom or a two bedroom?
Oh yeah, they
They
have
do.
smaller places too.
What what do those start at?
Um, I think they'd probably be around three or 400. But the
Okay.
thing is, when you start getting smaller, you have to understand there's a different. Um, if you just get four walls, you get a studio with four walls and a little hot plate and a sink. A lot of foreigners, we won't live in a place like that. We like want our AC or we want, I mean, up in Santa Ana, you don't need AC,
Hmm.
but we'll want hot water, maybe we'll want, and some of those things aren't necessarily givens in a $200, $300 apartment.
Hmm. Sure. What do you pay? Would you approximate per month for utilities? Gas, electric, water,
Water
Wi-Fi,
is
even a
very inexpensive. Water is very inexpensive. The highest water bill I've ever heard of was $15. The big cost here is for gas. They don't have any gas lines, so you have to buy gas containers, but
yes.
that's easy enough. You really just have a gas guy that you call and he comes out and you hook it up. Um, that's that's really affordable. That's again maybe $10 a month.
Okay.
Um, and then let's see, the electricity is that's the clincher,
Hmm.
especially if you have an AC. Again, if you're down at the beach where it's really hot and you want to run the AC a lot, you could have $100 bill. Easy,
Hmm.
easy.
Okay.
Um, if, but I mean, if you're and up high in Santa Ana, then you're not going to be paying for that much AC.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, groceries. Let's dive into that because groceries are expensive up here. What
yeah,
are
well,
they in El Salvador these days?
I'll get like 10 lemons for $1. Another big thing here is if you shop local, every town has a mercado. And
Hmm.
now they're going to have a little farmer's market every weekend
Nice.
where everyone brings their own stuff. So if you're shopping local, you can get 8 tomatoes for $1. It's like Roma's,
Hmm.
and you can get 10 limes for $1. You
Hmm.
can get it's very reasonable. You get a watermelon for $2. You can get dragon fruit. I was hosting a woman from Canada who loves dragon fruit, the
Hmm.
dragon fruit at the side of the road. Um, and we pulled over and she got a dragon fruit for I think it was 250. And it was like two for $5. Whereas in Canada, she paid 650 for a dragon
Sure.
fruit.
Yeah.
So that's some examples. You can get bananas. Oh my goodness, you can get 16 for $1 um, for
Okay.
bananas. The meat and the dairy can be that's pretty reasonable too, honestly. But I do recommend you go to a supermarket for your meat and your dairy unless you have a local supplier that you know and trust.
Hmm.
So, and the cheese down here is very different. It's fresh cheese. It's not like the hard, sitting around forever cheese like we have up there.
Hmm.
It's more wet and more soft.
Hmm.
Some of it's kind of like brie, but most of it's more crumbly like feta.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really nice. I have to say, again, if you eat a lot of processed foods, you're probably going to be paying more.
Sure.
I don't. I
Yes.
eat a lot of natural foods. I eat a lot from ingredients. There are not a lot of processed foods down here, which is why I'm way healthier in El Salvador. Every time I come back to the States, I get sick and I gain about 20 pounds.
Mhm.
So, and then I go back to El Salvador for 3 months and whoop, and I lose the 20 pounds and I'm healthy again. So, um, I say per month for one retiree, I'd say close to 300 to $400.
Okay.
Um, well, that's about what my husband and we paid about $400 a month in groceries. And that's for the two of us. But we also I had a little eco farm when I first moved down here. So I got a lot. I got mangoes, I got avocados, I got everything from my farm. And that's
Wow.
the other thing. Come
Nice.
down here, plant something and and it will come.
Hmm.
You can have your own avocados, your own mangoes, your own. limes, oranges.
Hmm.
It's very easy to live healthy down
Hmm.
here.
Like, what do you budget per month for restaurants, and what can you get like a local meal for today? A Salvadoran meal.
Well, similarly, like I was saying before, if you live like a local and you go to the local joints, like every city has a mercado, and I have on my channel, I have lots of different restaurant videos of like the best pizza in El Salvador, the best, this or that, the best Korean food, Japanese food, all that kind of stuff. But the main place that I eat is the mercado.
Hmm.
So next to the plaza, every city has a plaza, right?
Hmm.
And on the plaza, there's a church, and there's usually the government town hall, and then there's a mercado. And the mercado is the city market. That's where everyone has their fruits and vegetables to sell. And usually on the inside, there's little restaurants in the mercado. And I love it because the restaurants make everything from scratch, right? They're buying
Hmm.
ingredients from the mercado. And those little restaurants look at like 350 for a plate that has like rice, salad, um, a piece of meat, whether it's a chicken breast or a piece of beef. And then you get some tortillas on the side, and you'll get a little drink. Their
Wow.
juices down there are usually Jamaica or chata.
Yeah.
Um, so for like 350, you could get that, or maybe the drink will be extra.
Hmm.
Um, so in the mercado, those are the prices you can get when you go to the mom and pop places.
Sure. Yep.
Um, like probably $5 would be for a really good like dinner, a really good dinner where you got a steak and you got something really nice. But if you're gonna go to a nice end restaurant, then you're gonna go to a gringo or a foreign restaurant, then you're probably gonna be paying much higher, not as high as what you guys are paying right now,
Sure. Yeah.
but you'll be paying higher prices. And they do have
Hmm.
Wendy's and Denny's and things like that down here.
Hmm.
You can find them only in the city,
Hmm.
but yeah, but then you'll pay more. But even a Denny's meal would only be between, I'd say, $6, $7 for a Denny's plate.
Hmm. Okay.
Whereas I think in the States, a Denny's plate would be like 10,
Yeah.
10 plus.
Yeah.
So
How much
it's
do you
still,
think, how much do you think you budget per month for that going out to eat?
well, we usually only go out about once a week. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
usually our shopping day. We go to the Mercado, we shop, and we eat there, and then we head on back home. Um, because the rest of the week we cook at home.
All right. Let's touch on transportation. How do people get around there? Do they have rideshare, metro?
They have buses and they have Uber. Uber is really really cheap. Um, if you're coming down for your first time, especially if you don't know Spanish, you can get Uber, and there's Uber drivers that speak English too. An Uber is relatively really expensive. It's like $6 for, let's see, to go from the beach to the city. It's about a 30-minute ride. Probably be about $10, $12
Oh, wow.
to go from the
Okay.
beach to the city. Yeah, the Uber is very economical. Um, you can take buses if you learn the bus routes, and the buses, as I said before, I've never seen a bus that's over $1.
Hmm. All right, great. And Jenny, the last thing we have is healthcare. People are interested in finding out, do they have a public healthcare system, or and what's your take on the quality of the healthcare system down there?
Um, the public health care system is public health care. It's gonna take a long time to get in. And
Okay.
regardless of the country that you've gone to, Canada, any place that has socialized healthcare, there's usually a very long wait time. Um, but because of that, they have a lot of private hospitals, and they have private and the private hospitals are very economical. For example, you go in for a private visit, out of pocket, you're going to pay maybe
Okay.
$15. If you need some kind of test, the tests are like $10 to $20. I mean, it's very economical. Put it this way, sometimes I'll host people that are coming down for medical tourism. Um, and they're coming down to get their teeth done or to get implants or like 75% off down here.
Yeah.
So I started a little bit of medical tourism with doctors that I knew and trusted. And when people come down and they're here to have like a major procedure done, they can stay in the hospital after they've had their procedure instead of going to an Airbnb or going to a hotel. They can stay in the hospital, meals included, for $150 a day.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that would be a max for what you'd spend in a private hospital for
Yeah.
a day.
Oh, Jenny,
And that,
are you paying out of pocket or do you have insurance?
no, I just do out of pocket. It's
Out of
so
pocket.
economical that, yeah, I
Okay.
just pay out of pocket. If I have anything, I'll just go in for a test,
Hmm.
10, $15. And um, with some of the trusted providers that I have in my medical tourism business, they will pay you will pay anywhere from say $25 for a visit up to 40. But that's because all of my providers speak English. They're Salvadoran owned and operated. I've already vetted them. They
Hmm.
understand first world expectations
Hmm.
and they understand first world. They understand gringos. We're a little entitled.
Hmm.
So, and last of all, they're actively giving back to the community and have a charitable arm.
Hmm.
So those are my requirements to become a partner with me.
Hmm.
Um, but and so they are a little bit more expensive, but you have to remember in El Salvador, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Jenny Ari, thanks for being a part of the podcast and sharing all this information. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks so much for this great opportunity.